To prepare the Digimelt, the start temperature was set to 115 degrees Celsius in order to minimize the amount of compounds melting prior to the starting of the melting process, as well as to minimize the amount of time waiting. Only one standard, sorbitol, has a literature melting point value below 115 degrees Celsius, making it easy to pinpoint when it melts. The end temperature was set to 175 degrees Celsius to properly melt all of the potential standards in the compounds, as acetaminophen has the highest literature melting point maximum of 172 degrees Celsius. The ramp rate was set to 2 Celsius per minute to be able to adequately see when the melting began and ended. If the melting occurs too fast, one may be not able to know the correct range. The proper amount of compound necessary to load a capillary tube is about 3 millimeters of compound from the opening of the tube upward. Mixtures and impurities broaden and lower a compound's melting point range. More impurities lower the melting point range more than less. The beginning of the melting point range for 7A was 101.0 degrees Celsius as the solid showed its first drop in indication of liquid at that temperature, and the end of the range was 103.0 degrees Celsius as all of the solid had liquefied completely. The beginning of the melting point range for 7B was 97.0 degrees Celsius as the solid showed its first drop in indication of liquid at that temperature, and the end of the range was 102 degrees Celsius as all of the solid had liquefied completely then. 7B was the first to liquefy out of all three compounds. The beginning of the melting point range for 7C was 119.1 degrees Celsius, as the solid showed its first drop in indication of liquid at that temperature. The end of the range was 120.8 degrees Celsius, as all of the solid had liquefied completely. 7C was the last to liquefy out of all three compounds. Melting point range samples cannot be reused due to the presence of newly existing impurities after a compound has melted and its chemical structure has been altered.